Now, time for McNamara on Money, sponsored by McNamara Financial Services.
Good morning and welcome to McNamara on Money. I'm Kirk Reed, a certified financial planner professional with McNamara Financial in Marshfield, Massachusetts. This is a financial talk radio show for people who want to get all areas of their financial life in order, get their kids through college, and live comfortably in retirement. On this show, we will be talking about a wide variety of financial topics. You have to make many important decisions in your life that have to do with money, investments, insurance, mortgages, taxes, estate planning, living your life within your means, and retirement. Our goal is to help you with all of these. We also have lots of great information on our show's website, McNamaraOnMoney.com. You can download podcasts, watch videos, or browse our abundance of written articles on topics related to personal finance. And as always, to find out more about our practice, visit McNamaraFinancial.com. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
And we're back. You're listening to McNamara on Money. I'm Alyssa McNamara Reed, joined this morning by Sharon McNamara and Mary Baker of Boston Connect Real Estate. We're talking real estate this morning and the crazy things happening in that world right now. I'm also joined by my husband and business partner, Kirk Reed, and several children there in the background. So apologies for the noise. That's why we have a podcast editor who's like edits out all that stuff. But actually, I didn't hear them. Were you on mute?
We were muted.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, they're very...
We just saw it and imagined.
Yeah. They're probably still in the room. I just can't see them at the moment.
Well, they are very good about when to negotiate computer time.
Yeah.
They have a whole lot of leverage right now.
Yeah. They know you're not really listening to them or supervising, so...
Well, I need to get them out of here ASAP, and if that's what works...
Well, they need to put their laundry away first.
Right.
Always will be the mom. Okay, so Kirk, you had a whole bunch of questions for Sharon and Mary about real estate, so fire away.
Just a couple. We were talking about, inspections and things before the break there, and I was just kind of curious, you hire this inspection company to come out and, work on your behalf, and, what happens if you buy the house and then something gigantic comes up that the inspector missed? Is there any recourse there or no?
Unfortunately, there typically is not. So I'm no expert in what that looks like. We do have a form. It's called Facts for Consumers. That is supposed to accompany every offer that buyers have to sign off on. Well, they don't have to, but they should be signing off on it in case something like that did happen. They can go to the state and file a complaint against said home inspector. However, typically with your home inspections, you're going to sign a whole bunch of waivers at the very end that say, I can't see through walls, I couldn't inspect this, you hold me harmless from any liability based off of, things that I would not know or cannot control. Even when there's snow on the roof, I can't inspect the roof thoroughly. Yeah. There's just things that are out of my realm of control.
Can't check the AC during this time. They don't check pool pumps. They don't do all that stuff. Can't look at pools right now. Can't see a lot of the roofs. What you were saying, foundations, when we have a lot of snow, are difficult to see as well. So the home inspectors, that's why I say just hire a very, very good home inspector. Don't
leave it up to chance.
That isn't something that, during this process, we have a team of people that we work with. It's, and the people that we refer, the people that I would use myself. So we use Emmanuel Ebot. We do at Styles, and we use Styles and Ben over there. So their office is great. We use Steve Cook from Imperial Inspection Services. He's wonderful. You want to make sure that it may cost you a little bit more money to do that radon test, but just do the radon test. You don't want a surprise later.
I feel like
absolutely. I'm certainly advocating for getting an inspection. I'm just kind of curious, what the back end would look like if something ever came up. Yeah.
Generally nothing.
Yeah.
But the other thing, Kirk, is what is sometimes frustrating too is, and it's an exciting time. We understand that. But a lot of times, we'll be there. Steve is walking around and then, the buyers are measuring for curtains. You know what I mean? It's like, well, no, because even the inspection itself, it is to tell you what is, going on with the house. Is there something that has to be done now? Is there something that has to be done maybe in 5 years or 10 years? He's giving you good tips about, hey, you should be changing out the filter in your forced hot air heating system every 6 months, and this is where your water shut off is. So he's giving you a lot of information, but there's so many times, and I'm going to say it out loud, sometimes like the parents come,
it's a distraction,
and they don't understand how much houses are selling for right now. So they're looking around, they're like, are you kidding that you actually are paying this much money for this house? So that's a distraction as well. And you just really have to be paying attention to your home inspector.
Sure. Regarding the markets the way they are now, and things moving so quickly, and I know this is like, people ask us for prognostications and things about the the financial markets, but I mean, do you have any guess how long this goes for? I mean, if somebody's like on the fence about listing their house, I mean, and they feel like there's this push to get it on soon because the market's so hot. I mean, do you have any thought or reaction to that as far as how long does this market go for?
That's a good question. I'm thinking in my head.
I would say do it, list it. Market's good. Take advantage, do it.
That's what I said. That's how I feel. It's just like, well, I know what it is right now.
Yeah, we don't know. Yeah.
And this was an easy question for me to answer last year because I was like, all right, well, we're in an election year. So things, you never know which way things are going to go. So I sort of look at what is ahead, and I feel right now I think that we're going to see a lot more confidence in sellers selling their homes based on lifting some of these COVID restrictions. People getting, that's the other thing too, getting vaccinated, that older group that may be the ones that are in the 4-bedroom colonials. Because we're in this like funnel that is just clogged right now. So we have first-time home buyers that want to be in that first home that's, let's just say, a 1-level ranch. And they can't get in there because the person that's in the 1-level ranch really wants that 4-bedroom colonial or the Cape. And they can't get in there because those people right now are staying sort of put because they're working at home and they need, even if the kids aren't there, they're the baby boomers or whatever generation they are, the kids are no longer there, they're empty nesters. Now they're using Johnny's room as an office and she's using Sally's room as an office. So they're not going anywhere.
I just feel like really big picture, right? I just feel like this is more often the case than not where it's a seller's market. And if you think about it, that's probably the way, if we go back decades, right? It's probably more often than not less inventory than what people need, which drives prices up, which is kind of the way that, if you think about it, really everybody would want the real estate market to be. You want the real estate market over time to go up. Everybody wants that, except the people that have never owned a home and they're first-time home buyers. They don't want that. But everybody else wants the real estate market to just go up over time. It just seems like this is like the norm, right? I feel like sometimes when there's all this buzz about low inventory in the hot real estate market, but doesn't it seem like this is almost always the case, other than, coming out of the Great Recession, the credit crisis there. And if I was doing a little bit of research, and you can go back to the World Wars, right? And then there was a real estate downturn there, but it's this kind of like the norm, right? And will this be the norm,
Well, and I do think, we sort of see the same sort of fluctuations as you do. It's generally like every 10 years we're seeing it go like that. But until we can and this is the other problem, we really need some new construction in order to sort of push people along. I mean, the people in the ranch is the chicken or the egg, right? Well, we can't sell because no one above, we have no place to go. And even if you think about the people in the 4-bedroom colonials, the older generation or demographic, I meant to say, because that's where I would fall, they would maybe want the ranch. A lot of people want that small ranch, and but no one's moving anywhere. So what's been helping is the new construction, but new construction is falling into a lot. And I actually reached out on Tuesday. I reached out to our builder from Stonebridge Homes, and I asked him what is he seeing, and right now to build the same house, the lumber cost alone is $32,000 more.
I've heard that lumber has gone up significantly. Yeah,
it is crazy. So, and then also, I mean, they're in Stonebridge is in a very, very good position because they are, they're a medium company. They're not large like Toll Brothers, and they're not small like a onesie twosie guy. but they have contractors that are very committed to them. So they have those contractors. But the onesie twosie guys, they're having a hard time getting the contractors. And what's trickling from that is for the homeowners like Mark, for having a plumbing company, McNamara Plumbing. He has so much service work right now because he does a lot of stuff for Jack Mitchell down in Hull. So all of that, the renovations and new construction there. But since everybody is the tradesmen and women are so busy that they can't even get out to like fix somebody's toilet. It's and what they're charging. Mark is horrified to see. I won't say one company in particular on the air, of course, but he could not believe what this company was charging this person to do something at the house where it was like $2,500, and Mark's like, literally, it's going to cost me like $600. $600. It's going to cost you $600.
Yeah.
So watch out for that stuff.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Supply and demand. You don't have, but I mean, you have a high demand for tradesmen and you don't have enough of them.
Yeah.
Tradesmen.
But in the world of real estate, I almost feel like this is maybe not to the extreme that it is right now with such low inventory and so many buyers, but I feel like that's sort of the way that it should be most of the time, where there's a little bit less inventory than we need, which keeps prices kind of slowly going up. I mean, that's good for the economy. That's good for homeowners because, for almost every homeowner out there, your house either already is or will be one of your largest assets, and we want that to appreciate over time, right? We don't want so much inventory and so much building that home prices start to fall, at least for a long period of time. I just think it's funny because, Kirk, we hear, on the in the financial news, and we hear people talk about they're so nervous that the market is at an all-time high. Of course, not this week, but recent past, right? The market's at an all-time high. It's like the media portrays it as such a bad thing when the market's at an all-time high and scares people. The market should be at an all-time high, almost all the time. That's why people invest money, because we want the market to go up over time. If it was never at an all-time high, people wouldn't really be making money investing their money, right? Dividends and interest, all that, of course. But it's just, I feel like it's almost the same with real estate, right? We're in this, and again, maybe right now it's a little bit extreme, but I feel like it sort of should always be a seller's market, right? Because that's good for the economy and good for the value of people's homes over time. But I think it's just funny because sometimes the media portrays it as a bad thing, and really it's only bad for those first-time home buyers because they don't have that asset that is, appreciating, hopefully anyway.
But I mean, this would be in your hands for one of the things I'm thinking about as you're saying this is, so think about the people who are retired and they're selling their house and they're really not investing that money back into the economy. You know what I mean? So is being at this height now, is that really good? Because now the buyer emotionally paid, and it's going to take them. That's what we're going to see, by the way. We're going to see people in their houses longer than we did previously. Yeah. Because they're paying more, so they're staying there more in order to earn back that equity. I mean, remember, I'm listing a house. This is where I feel the value is. You chose to go. A house in Pembroke just sold $100,000 over asking. $100,000.
What was the price? What was the price at? Was this like a $1.5 million house?
Well, no. So it's sold now. So it was priced at $750.
Yep.
And it sold for $850.
But think about that. That's how somebody wanted to be in the town, and that's what they were willing to pay in order to get that house. So how long does that person have to be in that house in order to get that extra $100,000 equity back? So people will end up staying in their houses longer is one of the things I'm predicting. Yeah. Buyers who are buying now.
Well, yeah. Okay. I feel like when you're purchasing a piece of real estate, you should intend to be there for several years, right? I mean, it's similar to investing in the markets where you shouldn't, invest your money even in a balanced, moderate portfolio if you're not intending to have that money invested for several years. It seems to me that it should be the same with real estate because real estate doesn't go up forever, and you never really know where you are in the cycle when you're purchasing. So it seems to me like people should sort of always go into it like that. Is that not always the case? Do people kind of go in and I'll just sell it in a few years? Is that?
Well, I think if you timed the market right, you could a couple of years ago, I would say you could have been in something, and obviously, say you even purchased high 3 years ago, you're selling at a high now. But the conversation used to be, all right, is this the 3-year house? Is this my starter house?
Yeah.
Is this the house I'm going to be in for, until I find my significant other and we move on? Now it's more, this is the 10 to 15 to 20-year house.
Yeah.
The more, even first-time home buyers are buying the forever house before they do the starter house.
Yep.
But
because of low interest rates and everything.
Okay, because of low interest rates. But you were just saying like a couple years ago, someone could have bought a house and now sold it for quite a profit, right? But did you know? But you didn't know that at the time, because you never know where you are in the cycle at the time. You can't be like, I'm going to be able to sell. You can't know that you'll be able to sell it in 2 or 3 years for a certain profit, right? You never. That's what I mean by you shouldn't go into these. I don't think you should go into a real estate deal, right, thinking that it's going to be very short term. If you're doing that, you should be renting, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, short term too is, so when I'm saying longer, the average was between 7 and 10 years.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're going to see longer than that.
Yeah.
So like, how long were you in your condo for?
I was just thinking.
Touche, Sharon. Touche. I forgot I even owned that condo. I was like, what condo? That's how short it was.
Listen, worst.
All right, Kirk, how long were you guys in Norwell?
I am the worst example.
How long were you guys in Norwell?
So we've
7.
We've sold 3 pieces of real estate in our lifetime. We have lost money 3 times.
That is not true. Oh my God, that is so not true. I did not lose money on my condo. And we 100% lost money on Norwell. But I didn't lose money on my condo.
Okay.
It appreciated by real estate commission. I broke even.
Okay, so when you said that you lost money.
But I didn't buy that condo thinking I was going to sell it a year later. I didn't go into that being like, I'm just going to be here for like a year and then I'll sell. Things change and life changes and things happen, but
Let's go back to Norwell for a second.
Oh, do we have to? That was such a cute house. That house is so cute. Yeah.
Okay, so you said that you lost money on Norwell, but then you purchased Marshfield.
Right.
So what is that? How much equity do you have in that house right now?
A lot. Yeah, a lot.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter if we're not selling it.
Well, you sort of made up for it, is what I'm trying to make you feel.
No,
because it'll go. By the time we sell it, it'll go down.
That's not true.
I won't let you do that.
Even if it goes down in the short term, it'll come back.
How much equity do we have in Marshfield? How much money have we put into Marshfield?
Yes, that's the thing.
Probably
you put your equity back into it, so that's good. That's all good things because you're there long term. I mean, the girls will be doing proms and weddings and everything else. So
stop that. No, they're never getting older. Stop that.
No. Okay. Kirk, did you have more questions for us? Because I know
I forget where we were in that conversation.
I'm sure I did.
One thing I want to mention though is I love how passionate Alyssa seems when she's on the show. Like when I'm on the show with her, like she just like is. So
I'm always like hands flying.
Fired up.
I know. I inherited that from my dad because whenever he has like any sort of conversation, his arms are like flying up in the air, like a primate. Yes. But I know. I was on the Dr. Joe show not long ago on WATD actually, and Dr. Joe was like, "You're really passionate when you talk about work," and I was like, "Well, yeah, I should be, right? This is what I do every day, and I do love it."
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
But sorry, sometimes, and it's funny on the Zoom because even though I try to look at everybody else, you always like end up looking at yourself, and I can see my hands flying around, but I can't really control them. I can't control them. I wonder if I do that in meetings with people. I must probably just. Probably.
I notice when I wave my hands a lot. I go, I'm not even the least bit Italian. I'm like the least bit Italian, but for some reason I do this a lot when I talk.
I can see that now, Mary. I can see it. Kirk, what other questions did you have? Or we could go into other. I wanted to. Well, we sort of already touched on. Is this a bubble? I don't necessarily think we're in a bubble either. I don't know. I'm just kind of like, interest rates are going to be low for a long time. I think that so many people were able to refinance at such a low interest rate. I mean, I was hearing, 2.2s and 2.3s, on a refinance and, under 3s for sure. And as interest rates, mortgage rates have already ticked upward a little bit, right? And as interest rates tick up, how are those people like ever going to move? I mean, you're in that property for such an inexpensive, cost to carry that mortgage. And I don't know. I think that will help keep inventory low, like for a long time.
I agree with that too.
I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine. I mean, I think things are super hot right now and maybe they'll cool down, but I don't know.
Some of the conversations I'm having right now with people who are considering selling is, so I remember specifically going to somebody's house probably the end of last year, and they're busting at the seams. They want to, increase the size of their home. So what their thoughts are, all right, do we sell this because we know we're going to get a very good price? But then where do we go?
Yeah.
I mean, they have a couple options. They're not committed to one town, but then, or do we refinance and just put an addition on this house and stay right where we are? And a lot of people are doing that cash out refi and putting an addition on their house and just staying where they are. Again, another contributing factor to why we have such low inventory. Like you said, rates are low. People are refinancing.
Yeah.
Why would I ever leave if I'm paying 2.5%?
Yeah.
And Mary, can you talk a little bit about, because the interest rate's going up, if it goes up a point, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but some of these buyers are really stretching themselves just to get into the house. Mm-hmm. So that 1 point could make a very big difference in their mortgage, $200 to $300.
Yeah, it certainly does. I know we work with a lot of first-time home buyers, and they tend to be the ones who, if the interest rates start to creep up, it does greatly impact what they can afford. But there's a whole other demographic. We have in my opinion, we have two competing demographics of buyers right now. So you have your first-time home buyers, and then you have your right-sizers, kind of looking for the same thing. They're looking to downsize. It's the middle people that we need. And the ones who are looking to downsize usually have the healthier down payments. So they're beating out the first-time home buyers, pushing the first-time home buyers then to potentially, if they want to, a young couple who maybe is expecting a baby, can't wait for that perfect house to come along as the interest rates tick up. They might force them into the rental market in the interim. Yeah. While they wait for things to stabilize in a sense for them. Does that make sense?
Or force them into something that they don't really want. Those are the people that are probably going into it thinking, well, I don't really love this house, but it's good for now and we're going to be out of here in a few years. And that's scary to think about, especially when you're buying in a hot market like this.
And that's exactly what I was just writing as you were talking, because I didn't want to forget that. I mean, one of the things that we're seeing is, let's just say that what you can afford is $400,000 and you're looking at $400,000 houses. Now you're being bid out of that by other people who can put $50,000, over or whatever.
Who can actually afford $450,000?
Who can afford $450,000? So what we're seeing is that the buyer's agents are recommending, I know you can afford $400,000, but if you want your offer to get accepted, I say we look at a house that's $350,000 and then you overbid on it.
Yeah. I'm starting to get nervous, like thinking about these people that are, buying stuff that they can't really afford, and they have to reduce their 401k contributions, and they can't start saving for that baby's college education. I'm starting to get like real nervous for all these people. But
can you talk about that a little bit? I mean, what are your suggestions to people who are thinking about doing that?
I mean, I can, but we have to take a break. So let's talk about that as soon as we get back. So it's about 9:30 here. Let's take a quick break. You're listening to McNamara on Money. I'm Alyssa McNamara Reed, joined this morning by my husband and business partner Kirk Reed and his chief wahoo right there behind him. You did move, so it's not quite like you're one and the same. And Sharon McNamara and Mary Baker of Boston Connect Real Estate. We're talking about the crazy real estate market right now. Lots of things to discuss. We're just taking a quick break, and we'll be right back. This is Alyssa McNamara Reed with McNamara Financial in Marshfield. When I hosted the most recent Smart with Money Fair for the Marshfield High School seniors, we went through an exercise comparing investing an amount of money over 40 years versus investing that same total amount of money over 20 years. The end result for the person who saved longer was more than twice the amount of the other person's. This is a hypothetical exercise, of course, but the point remains: save early and save often. If I can help you save early and often, visit our website at McNamaraFinancial.com.
You own a business, or you're running a nonprofit or a municipality, and you just might be somewhat overwhelmed with all the changes in state healthcare law, federal mandates, rules governing retirement, employee benefits. For instance, do your employees understand the value and costs of their current benefits? Oh, and by the way, what about tomorrow's changes in state and federal policy? Keeping up is a full-time job, you have better things to do. Gallagher Benefits of Boston and Quincy are benefits experts. To be somewhat formal, Gallagher Benefits offers strategic consulting that assists employers in providing wellness and health promotion programs and offers advisory services to provide insight, understanding, and answers. Let Gallagher handle the headaches. Visit the web at ajg.com. Leave the aspirin on the shelf. ajg.com.
This is Kirk Reed from McNamara Financial. I often get asked, when should I start collecting Social Security? It's not always a quick question to answer, but an important one. If you'd like to have a conversation about your situation, give me a call at 781-834-2010 or check out McNamaraFinancial.com.
Good morning. We are live in studio today. Feel free to call with your questions, 781-837-4900, 781-837-4900, or you can send a text to 781-775-0116. Hi, this is Alyssa McNamara Reed. Bear with me as we need a little compliance disclosure. In our practice, we give financial advice to our clients. We know their financial situation in detail before doing so. That's generally not the case with callers we speak to on the show. We can't give truly meaningful financial advice because we don't know the detailed financial situation of the caller. We just met. Any suggestions we make to callers are generic in nature and meant to steer the caller in the right direction. Callers should check with their own financial professionals before implementing any suggestions that we may make. At times on this show, we talk about investments and investment performance. Investment returns are not guaranteed, and past performance does not guarantee future results. And we're back. Good morning. You're listening to McNamara on Money. I'm Alyssa McNamara Reed, joined this morning by, oh my goodness, you guys taking a selfie. Oh my goodness.
We're doing Instagram.
Oh
and
my
we're
goodness.
tagging
They're
you.
so social
Take
media.
Take a picture of them.
So social media savvy. That's Sharon McNamara and Mary Baker of Boston Connect Real Estate, routine guests. Although Mary doesn't generally join us, so that I'm happy you're here this morning.
This is my first time
Is it?
on McNamara on Money.
Oh.
I said that to Sharon earlier. I was like, I'm really official.
Is it?
And
Yeah.
I wore heels to the studio.
Did you? I bet you wear heels a lot. But,
Not as much anymore. I used to think I was.
We have no reason to get dressed,
hot,
really.
like hot stuff. But now
She's 31 now.
now I'm 31. I dress like a mom, even though I'm not a mom.
well, welcome. I just assumed you'd been on the show before. I know I've maybe just because I'm been on your show, and so we've chatted in that regard.
Yeah.
All right, but we've been talking about real estate this morning, and right before the break, we started talking about, those, for example, first-time home buyers who are, very sensitive to, would be very sensitive to increases in interest rates in terms of affordability of home. And, for me, like I was just mentioning, the thought of them, not necessarily just overpaying, but the thought of them stretching themselves to get into a home because they have to stretch themselves in this, seller's market. It just makes me really nervous because then, does that mean that they're going to be, sacrificing savings in other areas? Does that mean they're going to spend all their cash and not leave themselves in emergency reserves? Does that mean they have to lower or eliminate retirement contributions for a period of time? Does that mean that they can't, you mentioned all these first-time home buyers walking through the open houses with their little babies in the little carriers, and does that mean they wouldn't be able to start saving for the little ones if college savings is important to them? So that stuff makes me nervous, and I think what you mentioned earlier, Sharon, about kind of what you say to those buyers is, well, if you can afford $400, you should be looking at homes in the $350 range because you're going to have to overbid anyway, and you'll end up at $400, right? So, I mean, I think that's good advice because if you can afford $400, you probably shouldn't be going to $425 or $450 or more than that. So, I think that's good advice. What you mentioned.
Yeah, and I do think too, the quality of life. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And, so for some people who are literally stretching themselves so thin, we've seen this happen with past clients. It's, they're building a beautiful home. Everything is great. They're putting in, the high end everything. And then once you're in it and that excitement of having that new, bigger, better house is sort of faded, then real life comes on. It's like, oh, all right, well, now we can't afford to go to Disney, or we can't afford to go to Six Flags, or we can't afford to, we can't go bowling tonight, or, all of those things that we could do pre-COVID. And who wants to live like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just think, and again, I felt the same exact way in 2004 and 2005 when, the market was so busy. And I just don't want to see happen to people because, and here's the other thing too. Let's just talk about the facts. People get divorced, there's disability, there's, loss of job. There's so many things when you're just pushing your financial well-being that far.
Yeah.
It makes me nervous too, Alyssa.
Yeah. Kirk, do you want to share with Sharon those stats on our Norwell house? Since she was, since she asked about that
on the break. That's awesome.
She was asking about that. Yeah, Kirk sent me a text earlier.
All right, so we bought it in 2006 for $378. We sold it in 2012, so 6-year hold for $365.
And
okay.
Oh, and Zillow today says it's worth $515.
Look at that.
So even if that went for $50,000, let's say Zillow is roughly accurate. Okay, does that sound right? Like a small little ranch in Norwell in a little neighborhood for $515. Tiny little cutesy patootsy little house on a cute little plot of land.
It was adorable.
It was so adorable. I just loved it. The little farmer's porch, the little hanging flower baskets, which always died because I can't keep anything alive. That's not my child,
Except for your children.
Except my children and my dogs. Even if it sold for $50,000 over asking, $565,000, 14 years, that's only a 2.9% rate of growth on that house. But 2006 was like the height of the last real estate boom, right?
Well, 2005 was really
2005.
It started
That's right.
to go down.
That's right.
That's when it started to go down, and then 2010, 11 was the bottom.
Right. So if we
would never sell during the height. No, that's not our style.
We'd like adventure.
we could try again the next time. We'll try again. Yeah. But if some people, some people think this is a bubble, if the bubble bursts, right? So if here we are at the height of the next real estate boom. On that's a small, modest property. That's not your, 3,000 square foot colonial, of course, but that, that's only a 3% per year rate of growth on that. I'm always doing the calculations about rate of return. We've had whole shows on this, of course, real estate as an investment and comparing it and stuff like that. And I just. Sometimes I just don't know that real estate really, really long term appreciates the way that people think that it will or assume that it will, especially if you factor in the money that you have to put into the home to maintain it. People, and that's inflation right there.
Yeah.
That's your home keeping up with inflation. And like I said, maybe that's not a great example at being like a modest property, but that's in a really nice town. Right?
Yeah,
and
it's a really nice house. It really is a nice house. I mean, if that went on the market today, it would probably go over the 515.
Right.
1,000%. Yeah. And that's, Kirk looking at Zillow. So there's been a lot of controversy within the real estate market with Zillow these days. So just so you guys know how that works, so as real estate agents, we pay into MLS, which is the multiple listing service. So every single agent has to pay, I think it's like $87 a quarter to be part of that. And then they sell the feed over to Zillow. Well, then Zillow calls us as agents and says, hey, would you like to buy a zip code? And then we have to spend thousands of dollars a month just to get those clients to come to us for our own listings. Well, Zillow recently changed some things around, and they came to me and said, so we'd like you to be part of the program. We're going to be very particular, and it will be $10,000 a month. I'm like, I'm all set.
Oh my, to get your picture like on the Zillow website as an agent. Is that what you mean by buy a zip code?
Yeah.
$10,000 a month.
That's a minimum.
That's a minimum. And then they're changing it over. So my prediction is that Zillow is really starting to form themselves to be their own brokerages.
Oh, okay.
So they're taking these small teams and small brokerages now, and they're grooming them, because then the next step after you've proven yourself to them for the $10,000 a month, then you're in a program where you don't pay anymore. but you give them for every transaction you sell that they gave you the lead, you have to give them a referral.
30 to 50%.
30 to 50%.
That's a healthy referral fee. Yeah, that's pretty healthy.
Can you imagine?
Seems like you could do a lot in the way of marketing for those dollars.
Oh,
right?
100%.
Right.
And
Yeah.
as a listing agent, it doesn't even really matter if these other agents are buying those leads and they're getting leads to our clients. That's fine. That doesn't matter to me who sells it, so long as somebody sells it.
Yeah.
It's not costing me anything. I'm not paying $10,000 a month to have my listing listed there. But what we're seeing though is, Zillow has all these great ideas, and I just came across this the other day where somebody had said they were considering putting their house on the market themselves, so for sale by owner. And I just, it just doesn't work like it used to work.
Oh,
so
okay.
we are in so many different places. And I know that everyone thinks, hey, I'm just going to put a sign out on my door and somebody's going to buy my house. Yep, that definitely does happen. But there are so many liabilities that sort of fall within that. But getting the most exposure is the best thing that you can possibly do, because if there's a house on the market, I think last year we had a house that was on the market for like, I don't know, 400, and it ended up selling for like 475.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So would have you done that? And I used that analogy with somebody that I went to the other day, and I said, let's just say your house was on the market for 400 and somebody knocked on your door and said, I'm going to give you 425 right now not to put this on the market and let me buy it. I said, would you take it? And he's like, yeah, of course, it's $25,000 over asking. I said, well, we had that scenario last year and we got $75,000 over asking. So you're losing money. It's 100%. You get more money when you have the most exposure.
Yeah, we could do a whole show on for sale by owners and why not to do that. Statistically, you actually make more money when you list your house with an agent than you do if you do a for sale by owner, despite any concerns over compensation.
Yep.
Even
Would,
okay.
I had a question about So, like, if somebody, because of the home values where they are today, and if somebody's thinking about, perhaps selling just because, psychologically they're like, man, yeah, I want to take advantage of this equity that I have at this present time, and let's say they're on the South Shore here, and is there a on a relative basis, like if they were to move, say, from Marshfield to to go inland a little bit, into I don't know, Halifax or somewhere. Are there towns around here that are presenting more value, relative to some of the surrounding towns? Like if you say, hey, I want to sell this bigger house, I want to buy a smaller house, but because rates are so high, but are there some places they could look around here that are where the value is higher?
So I guess that's all relative to the person, because if
Sure.
somebody is selling a house in Marshfield, and they're buying in a town like Halifax, then prices tend to be less in Halifax anyways.
Yeah.
So, but what we're seeing, I'm actually doing a CMA on a house in Halifax. I went to one yesterday, and the problem I'm going to have is this house is so beautiful. It's so well done that there isn't anything for me to compare it to. So in Halifax. So I'm going to be pushing the envelope and pushing the market on that one with my price point, because I know it's worth it. And that's what we're seeing. So that trickle effect I was talking to you about earlier, where, we're seeing the buyers, the prices are increasing everywhere. So if people are getting pushed out of the Marshfield market, then they're going to Pembroke and Duxbury going to Marshfield, and everybody's sort of moving around, and Pembroke people into Hanson and Halifax, so the people are sort of going that way.
Absolutely.
And the prices are just increasing there as well. So the people in Halifax that were the demographic that was buying there can't afford that. They're maybe pushing out to Plimpton. So everything is getting pushed more and more south. And then, we could do a whole show on what's going on down the Cape, because
What is going on down the Cape?
Well, because of COVID, their market is just as fast. And because of COVID, a lot of people are doing that second home. So those are getting scooped up right away.
Well, I wanted to get into second homes a little bit, and I don't know, things to think about or things to look out for, because as I mentioned to Sharon, and Kirk's going to roll his eyes, but I have love skiing. The girls and I have really enjoyed skiing this year. Of course, was looking at real estate in Vermont recently. Terrible time to buy a ski condo, but just brought up these, questions about, sort of things to think about. It seems like a lot of people are scooping up ski condos because they could spend the whole winter there, work from home, and it's just like a whole nother lifestyle. Same thing with down the Cape. I'll scoop up the Cape House now because I can work down the Cape all summer this summer, work from home and not have to commute. So those markets seem to be even hotter. I mean, the real estate agent that you put me in touch with in Vermont was saying that, I mentioned one condo that I thought was, would have been perfect. I'm not going to buy a ski condo, but I like to dream. But he was saying that they're literally going in hours.
Yeah,
you have to be ready
without people seeing them.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's unbelievable. He's like, you have to have a pre-qualification or be a cash buyer. You have to, make your offer immediately when you see something. It's just crazy. And is it the same down the Cape?
Can you tell Sharon about the details of that one real quick? Because I had a funny thought on that.
About the details of
the most recent one I told you about that I was interested in initially.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm now on the email list for this realtor that, does a lot of business up around, in the mountains of Vermont. And first of all, it was just funny because I had sent him an email and was like, this is what we would be looking for in the price range, which was, very reasonable. And and I'm just now on his general email list when things come on the market. The first one, which I didn't even tell Kirk about, the first email I got from him was like, oh, there's this new listing. And, the first email I got from him, I didn't know if it was just to me. Of course it wasn't. Of course it's just an email list, right? He probably has, dozens, if not hundreds of buyers, right? And the first one, I'm like, oh, all excited. I'm reading the description. I'm all excited. And I click on it. It was a $1.9 million post and fee, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, this is just an email list. But then the next one that came up a few days later did look like a very appropriate fit for us. And I, immediately emailed him back, asked a couple questions, email exchange really quickly. And then he's like, he emails me back. He's like, FYI, just found out that there was a murder in this unit in the 90s. And and he's like, full disclosure, I just found out, you should know. I was like, oh my God, thank you so much. Because what buyer would ever, I don't know if he does a Google search generally or has someone that does that.
But I was just thinking, in this market, people might be like, well, was it just one murder?
That's what I'm thinking. I was like, so long ago. Are the walls still stained?
It was 20-something years ago.
Is there a filter for that? Is there a filter for that on Realtor?
On Realtor.com, Murder House. That's a very good example, though, about the importance of having a buyer's agent.
Yeah.
And when people come to us, we always suggest that, hey, we're happy to be your buyer's agent if you're just out there floating around, because a seller's agent can't tell you that. So he found out on his own accord about that murder. And
a seller's agent can't tell you that? I would feel like they should have to tell you that. That seems like...
Unless you ask. And how many people walk into a house at an open house and say,
I know.
Has there been a murder here?
Has there anyone ever been killed in this? Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah. So does he... maybe he just did a Google search or he has some staff or something that was just, oh my goodness.
Yeah. Oh, did you hear about that? That would be exactly it.
I would think that a seller's agent... I would think that a seller would have to disclose something like that, but that's just me, an ignorant, potential buyer. Oh my God, that's scary.
The theory behind it is that if you're disclosing that information, you're stigmatizing the property.
Yeah.
You're potentially stigmatizing the sellers and stigmatizing the property against a slew of buyers that probably would discount it.
And Massachusetts very much is caveat emptor, right?
Yeah,
so buyer beware. So buyer has to do their own due diligence, which is why you want somebody who is
Granted, this
looking
was
into
Vermont,
these
not Massachusetts, so I think the same rules apply, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, what's one murder in all reality?
Oh my goodness! I was like, nope, no, thank you. I can't be thinking about that the rest of my.
She makes me wipe my shoes when I leave an antique, and she's like, "Oh, what's one murder?" It's
my goodness! Yeah.
Yes. But that is what we're seeing, and it will sell. There will be people who just don't care about that.
It's probably already contingent. I mean, I just pop in, to the Realtor app or whatever. I just pop in just for fun. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you had an agent that helped you and said, "Hey, listen, I think this would probably impact your decision." There's probably a bunch of buyers who the person who has it under agreement right now might not even know.
They don't even know.
Yeah.
They might not even have an idea. They'll know when they move in and their next door neighbor tells them.
Think about this, though. I mean, how often are you going up skiing? And, if you're doing that a lot, are you staying in hotels or are you doing Airbnbs? I don't know what the cost is. I mean, you don't need to have the comforts, you know what I mean? If you have a hotel room, you have 2 queen size beds, you know what I mean? So like, how big of a place do you really need or want up
Depends
there?
on how much time you spend
Right.
there.
Yeah. Is the value going to be there? So.
Right. Yeah.
And that's Mark
Same
and
thing with the
I
Cape.
talk about that. I would love to have a place down the Cape. And I just picture, when, Mary and Sam get married when they come down with the kids, and with Casey and Mackenzie and coming down with the kids, and all of us just being at the Cape.
Yeah.
And Mr. McNamara thinks about, what about my boat?
He was like, if we have a Cape house, we won't spend any time on the boat.
Well, we won't have a boat. So why would we have
Or
a
you'll
boat?
have it
So-
docked down the Cape. That's what I would be thinking. You'll have
that's
it-
what I say to him. I was like, dream big, baby. We'll just have a dock at the end of our house.
Yeah, now you're talking. Yeah.
Well, we have to meet with you at some point soon, too. Anyways, I'm sure you'll tell us we can't do that.
I don't know. Don't assume. Some people assume. I just had a client yesterday saying, I thought you were going to say the exact opposite of what you said. But everyone's situation is different. He thought I was going to say, do this, do that, pay yourself first, and his situation was such that, he had some flexibility to do some of the things that he wanted versus like strict, save. He happens to be a really good saver. But anyway, I digress. But my point is, don't always assume.
Well, can I bring up something about that from the financial point of view? And I know you want to talk real estate today, but I just have these memories of and now where I am in my life. I'm going to be 53, next month. And I remember having that first consultation with your dad. He came to the house, and Casey and Mackenzie were babies. And he's like, well, in order to get them through college, you should be saving this amount of money. And I was like, holy moly, like I couldn't buy groceries this week until he got paid, I was home with the kids. And I'll never forget that. I went into the bathroom and just started crying. I was like, our kids are never going to college, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, we know that isn't true. So, but then like all along the way, I mean, we have sat with, you and Kirk and your father and, just the way that you've lined everything up. It's so interesting because Mark and I were talking last night, and we've been helping Casey and Mackenzie through the years, and especially last year while Casey was at BU, we were paying for her rent, and just that extra rent payment that I was making, it was like $1,600 a month. Like right now, I looked in the bank account the other day, and I was like, I feel like maybe we're transferring too much money into the household savings, but like it's now caught up. So like you were right. Like, you know what I mean? I remember you giving me that advice. Like, there's going to be a time when you're not putting money towards college and you're not doing things. So that's when we have to sort of reconvene. But like, the time goes by fast.
This is why she just said her girls aren't going to grow up. What are you doing here?
I know.
Well, and you're fortunate enough that now that your girls are through school, you don't have a bunch of debt related to them being in school. There are some people that take on debt for the benefit of getting their kids through the school. And, some people can afford that and some people arguably can't. But some people get their kids through school and still for years are paying off the schooling because they took on debt. So they don't get that freedom, immediately, financial freedom that you're now getting. So anyway, the importance of planning, that speaks to the importance of planning ahead, but also the importance of only taking on what you really can afford. I mean, having said that, there are clients that I work with that I have actually said, yes, you can afford to take on some loans and pay them back after your kids get out of school. That's of course depend. Everyone's situation is different. But you have that, relief a little bit earlier than other people who take on some debt for their kids. So
and living within our means. I think that's one of the things we see when we're seeing people buying these bigger and bigger houses, and it has to have the granite, it has to have the stainless, it has to have all these things. It's people spending money they don't have on things they don't need to impress people they don't know. So I feel like, being married to one of the McNamaras, Nana and Papa went through the Depression, and it was all about, saving and living within your means. And I'm sort of glad that
you learned that lesson early on.
Well, I
taught the lesson through osmosis.
Mark's like, no, you can't have that. So, well, we only have like 6 minutes left.
We only have a few minutes. Yeah. What else do we need to touch on, ladies and gents?
Look at your agenda here.
One of your items in your agenda is talking about population growth.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was going to, no, go ahead. I was going to say
that always pops into my head because, well, first of all, I read that book years ago about, was it a David Brown book? And they made it into a movie. And it was basically about this guy who thought population growth was such a terrible thing and was trying to like kill off a large part of the population. It was like a Tom Hanks movie, like years ago.
Okay.
Anyway, this is that for some reason
it's
that
a theme
movie,
for a Marvel movie now too.
That movie sticks in my head. But population growth is no joke. I mean, even I went back and I looked at a little history. It seems to average in the United States in the last couple decades 0.5% to 1% per year. But that's a couple million people per year. And that's, that sometimes like, especially now that we had COVID and you're, in your bubble for like a long period of time, right? And now, we had a couple ski trips and you're driving through Boston and north of Boston and you're like, holy moly, like, well, no, what I was going to say is like all the new residential developments that are just popping up everywhere through the city, North Shore, South Shore, everywhere. And it just constantly amazes me that there's so much demand. But you have to remember, it comes back to population growth, also immigration, right? And people coming from other countries. And that's not, actually, I don't think that's factored into the population growth data I was looking at. But it makes sense to me. And actually, to my point earlier, where I was talking about, we obviously want the prices of real estate to increase over time. Population growth is helping that because it's constantly more demand. And it's like, sometimes it's kind of mind-boggling for me to think about that. But in terms of like, sort of making sense of those vast numbers, right? It's, because we live in one small little area of the country, but, I don't know. That's the type of stuff that just like really amazes me, and in some regards, thank goodness for that. Because what if we had, what is it? I don't even know what's the word for like population decrease. I was going to call it like depopulation. I don't actually know if that's a word, but
I think it's called communism, right?
Well, they imposed those regulations in China all those years ago, right?
Yeah.
You'd only have one child, and because they were trying to control the population. Think about the impact of that on real estate. I mean, that's like scary stuff if there was something like that in terms of, the amount of money that people have tied up in real estate in this country. Likely very different in China, I'm guessing, and in terms of the amount of money people have tied up in their homes in China, at least the large percentage of the population. But I don't know, that's just like super interesting stuff for me to think about. What's your take on that, Mary? Did you have a comment about that?
Well, it was the first thing that stuck out to me about your agenda here, and I was thinking about it. That's why I don't think so. Yes, we're in a low inventory market, and we've steadily been increasing in that market, like it's been getting lower and lower, and the demand is getting more and more and more. But it's because of population increases or growth. So I don't feel like it's going to go anywhere. I think what we'll start to see is more renters. Or more people who wanted to be homeowners choosing to rent longer. But I feel like we'll be in this seller's market for a long time. I just I can't see a scenario and where it goes anywhere. And that's one of the contributing factors.
Yeah. And I mean, I agree. And I think that that's healthy. I think that that's like the way that it should be. I mean, I think the government wants real estate prices to not fall significantly, right? They because people have so much wealth tied up in that. And falling real estate markets have disastrous effects on the economy. And then the financial markets, like look what happened about a decade ago. So yeah, I agree with you, Mary. I think this is probably hotter than it normally will be going forward, but I think that this is like maybe sort of a norm. Some version of this, I feel like, could potentially be sort of the norm. Of course, we'll be sitting down a year from now, and maybe it'll be totally different. I never.
We have to talk about multi-generational living because we're seeing a lot of that.
Yes. Well, we have to go. The music is playing. Thank you so much, Sharon McNamara and Mary Baker of Boston Connect Real Estate. You can find them at bostonconnect.com or 781-826-8000. Hopefully that was the right number. Yes. I pulled it right off your website. You're listening to McNamara on Money. I'm Alyssa McNamara Reed. I was joined this morning also by my husband and business partner, Kirk Reed. We got to go. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, ladies. Bye.